Welcome back on stage, Birgitte Stermose. Birgitte, we saw in the credits that you used parts of a short film called Out of Love, and I think that was the beginning for this film also. It's like a sequel, AFTERWAR. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about the genesis of AFTERWAR.
Yeah, so actually the chapter in the film that's called The Past is more or less the short film. Yeah.
And then you decided to make like a longer version, or why did you decide, okay, I'm going to stay?
Yeah, so I didn't stay. I made the short film in 2008, I think it came out. And it had its own life, and I was, we were all happy with it, and it did really well. And over the years, I kept in contact with some of the kids. Some of my crew kept in contact with some of the others. Some we lost contact with. And in that period, social media was growing quite intensely. And some of them I would follow and stalk on social media, you could say, because I was very curious what was going on in their lives. And that curiosity, when we started to approach 10 years after I'd done the film, that curiosity led me to ask the Institute if I could have a little bit of development money to go and see if I could find them all in a more methodical manner and meet with them and sort of investigate whether it would be worth doing another film with them. And the reason that I got curious about doing that was because I could see that the struggle that they had when they were children was continuing in just as an intense way. And I thought, the way we tell stories, the Hollywood model is a little bit, we have a conflict or somebody's doing badly, and within an hour and a half, 2 hours, things are good, right? So we keep telling these stories about how, when people are in miserable situations, they get out of them. And the fact, I think, is that if you live in the kind of poverty that these kids lived in, it's very, very difficult to change that predicament. Even if you really fight for it, there's so many odds against you. And I thought, because I had the footage from the old film, I thought I actually had an opportunity to tell that story, because I could tell something over such a long period of time, which you normally can't do. Yeah.
You usually work as a fiction director, and I see this film in a way as a kind of drama. How did you approach it? How was your work with the protagonists, with the actors?
So the way the film is created, it's I have a method where I also, for the short film, the old part of the film, where I interview them, quite long interviews, quite structured, with certain topics that try to get at the emotional condition, some factual stuff, not so much, but more abstract, sort of human things. And those interviews I have used to write the film based on. And the film was shot afterwards. You saw it, besides the old part, which was shot a long time ago. Then it was shot over a period of 4 or 5 years, where I would interview them and I would write scene material, and I would show it to them, and we would discuss it, and then we'd shoot it, then I would edit, then I would go back to some more interviews. So it's sort of, I think I shot 4 or 5 times over that period.
So it was an iterative process in a way.
Yes, and also a film that, because it is based on their lives. There's nothing in the film that I sort of came up with. It's not fictional in that way, but it's maybe not factually their lives, their specific lives, but it's all, one thing I've said sometimes is that I think the film is 100% emotionally true. So it's 100% emotionally their story. I put them in jobs that is not, like Gesim, he digs out in this stone area. He doesn't do that. He works with construction. There are a lot of details like that we've changed and made fiction out of. The scene where where he gets his pay and gets fired. It's a written scene, but he constantly gets fired because he gets into trouble with people. So in that way, it's fiction, but it's really not. It's not. I haven't come up with things that haven't told me that they did or that weren't in some way true. Yeah.
You don't speak Albanian, I think.
No.
So how did you gain the trust of your protagonists? How did you communicate with them? Was it even helpful that you couldn't speak Albanian?
No, it would have been helpful if I spoke Albanian. I think, you make the situation work you're in, and then that's what you like in a way. But of course, it would have been helpful if I spoke Albanian. I have worked very closely with a local crew, and I have on the longer film I had Gasmund with me. So if you spoke Albanian, he would have been right here, and we sort of had a process together where he would take a lot of the longer talks with the cast. That's why he's credited as cast producer. He could have been credited as a lot of things, but he would take maybe the difficult talks, and then I would talk to him, or sometimes we would sit, the three of us, and talk. I think since I've known them for so many years, and since me and the crew were witnesses to what happened when they were children, there's an intimacy in the group and a trust that we don't have to work for because of the history. Yeah.
Are there any questions or comments? Yes. I'm just going to repeat the question. How did you get in contact with the protagonists originally for the short film?
It was actually quite a long process, like a year and a half, I think we spent. So we would meet the kids one by one over several trips when I was there. I worked with Katrina Krasniqi on the old film as sort of my right hand. And she would also meet them when I wasn't there, start to build a trust. We hired 2 young brothers who really worked the street for us and who gained a lot of trust. But it was very slow and careful. I don't think, and in the beginning, they didn't want to have any photographs taken. They didn't want to, they weren't wanting to be exposed in any way. They had no interest in that. So it took a while, yeah.
How did the protagonists react to the finished film? Maybe they saw small bits, but as a whole.
To AFTERWAR, yeah. They have been traveling around with the film with me. So, and they take quite a bit of ownership. After Berlin, they were like, where's the money? There were so many people, things like that. We are the co-creators. I had to explain. Nobody makes anything. It's just, So they are they're very proud of the work they did. I have all along sort of had an agreement with them that they were actors in the film. And of course they know that it's about them, and of course I know it's about them, and the audience knows it, but I always wanted to give them the opportunity to hide if they chose to. And it couldn't be in general, it could also be with somebody. So if somebody would make them uncomfortable, they could just say, well, I'm just acting, And actually the guy who plays Gesim, the rapper's father, is a very famous actor in Kosovo. And he's a friend, and I asked him to please be in the film for this reason, because I thought anybody in Kosovo would recognize Luan and say, okay, he's an actor. We've seen him on TV. He's not his father. So, and I did that to give it an alibi. So there are several actors, actual actors in the film, together with them. they have also become really excellent actors. Actually, I've been encouraging people that make films in Kosovo to use them because they're different, but they can really perform. What was your question?
It's fine.
Okay.
That's something, but something that I also thought while watching the film. Wow, they never seem to act, but of course they are acting. So yeah.
Yeah, but sometimes they're performing an interview. Like for example, when Shiva did the monologue in the bathroom, which is a very difficult monologue, that's taken verbatim from her interview. So this is what she said in her interview, and when we were doing it, she said, "Well, this word is not the word I used," And I said, "Okay, but do you mind using it? I think it's a little more poetic." She's like, "Okay," So with different things at different levels of sort of one-to-one truth. The question was what they think of the film. But that's
the original one.
yeah. But there was something I knew there was something I wanted to say about that. I think because the film is so much about shame and about not being able to reveal your past because it's shameful. Of course, it's very tricky to make a film about that because the film does reveal everything. And so I was quite nervous when we were going to premiere the film in Berlin because I thought, how are they going to feel, with 500 people all of a sudden knowing. And I had individual screenings with them before we locked the film where we had talked about if there was anything they weren't comfortable with, so I could take it out. And at that screening, I also said to them, if, for example, we get to Berlin, there will be this many people. They will, people will write stuff. People will talk. Are you sure that everything in there, that you're okay with it? And they said yes, but I didn't feel confident that they actually knew how to judge that situation, because you don't know how that's going to be until you've tried it, I don't think. And I think the first screening was what I'm talking about, was amazing for them. People came up and hugged them, so I think, and were very moved by them. And it is very moving when they stand there afterwards because they look a little different and, they have a different demeanor when you see them in real life. I think they felt traveling with the film very seen. And I think it slowly became this process of stepping out of this silence that they had been in. Yeah.
Any more questions or comments? Yeah.
It did last year. Yeah, and it won the audience award, which we're very happy about. It did, yeah. Are you from Kosovo? Oh, okay. Nice. So what did you think? No. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah. I think at the Danish premiere, we had one screening where this Danish war correspondent interviewed me and the cast. And he said at that screening, he said, look, for me, this film has sort of it's the emotional state of any post-war country I've been to. And for me too, I could have made it much more specifically about Kosovo. For me, it's not so specifically. Of course, it is about Kosovo, or anybody who is from Kosovo only sees that it's from Kosovo. But for me, I think you could have made the exact same film in any other post-war country. Yeah. I don't think, of course, once you start filming, everything gets very specific. But, you could have made the same film in Afghanistan or, yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about your use of sound and music in the film?
Yes.
Because there is a lot of, I guess, pop songs, you would call them.
Yes.
But also a lot of sound design.
Yes.
How did you work with your collaborators on that?
Thank you for asking me that question, because actually, sometimes if I ever stay and watch the film, it's because of the sound. That's the one thing left for me to enjoy. The sound design is done by Christian Eidnes, both on the old film and the new. And Christian is known for doing the sound design in Lars von Trier's films. He's a brilliant sound designer. And what we did on this film was I really love when sound design, when you tell a story outside of the frame. So we worked very hard on that. There's always the neighbor, the person in the next room, the people on the street. There's a lot of storytelling in the sound design all throughout the film. And Kosovo is an amazing sounding place. I love the way it sounds. It's like a mixture of life and people and cars and construction and dogs and all these things. So and we worked with a sound recordist in Kosovo, Plum, and he went out for days and recorded. So it's also very authentically that. Often when you do post sound, you don't have that luxury. You end up going to a library. But I wanted it to be very in that way, very specifically Kosovo. So it felt very real, because you get a lot of mess when you do it that way. And I really wanted the mess, sort of the messy sound design. And in terms of the pop music, I actually worked for a couple of years on a film that never got made about Albanian pop. So I'm a big fan. So we had put a lot of the pop in the film. And, the artists pretty much donated the music to us. I know a lot of people we worked for a while. It included going to a beauty parlor, finding one musician, things like crazy things to clear all the music, but we did manage to clear it all. And I wanted to have this. Yeah, I just wanted to have this. I don't know. I think it's that pop music, you hear it in other places when you're there, and I really like that part of the soundscape.
It makes it feel very real in a way, I think.
Yeah. Even though it's obviously constructed, but for me, it's admittedly not a very upbeat film. So I thought it could use. So I think there's 28 needle drops of music. It's a lot, besides the composed music. Yeah, so it's really a lot.
Any more questions? Now is your chance.
You can ask any question. That's his rap song. So Gesim, after we did the short film Out of Love, I think some of them were like, okay, I did a film, moved on. Gesim, it became his identity. For several years, he started to say, I'm Gesim the artist, because he had been part of an art film, and he started to, I think he lives in Prizren where DOK.fest is, and I'm good friends with the head of DOK.fest, and he was the one who found Gesim originally. Because when I was doing the film, he said there's this guy on the street in Prizren who takes Polaroids of people on the street. He takes portraits. And he looks like something out of Dickens, is what Bethan said. And so he went to him and said, would you be in the film? And he was in the film. And because the connection came that way, and it's a small town, people know each other, he hung out with the DOK.fest crew for some years and had got this identity. And I think they probably also, I'm sure Bethan said to him, why don't you do something about your life? You could do some art about your life. And so he started to write these texts. So the raps are his raps. Yeah. So he raps. He performs once in a while. I mean, he works in construction, but once in a while he will rap. Yeah. Yeah. And they're quite powerful texts. They're very honest.
Birgitte, thank you very much for this very moving film. Thank you for coming to Munich.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Please tell your friends that there is another screening on Saturday at 6 o'clock at the Atelier. So if you want to tell them that this fantastic film is showing, please do so. Thank you very much.